Yes, peace party people. We are back to our regularly scheduled program here on Where My Killer Tape At. We bring you back some old segments, how to approach women and health. We're going to talk about the big debate on ghostwriting and how I feel about that. We're also going to talk about Black Thought's EP with the wonderful Ninth Wonder. We're going to talk about Kim K and prison reform. Well, we definitely did talk about that. We're going to talk about a little bit about Kelly Marie Tran and that situation with trolls, and why we shouldn't give people props for doing the bare minimums. Check it out. I want my killer tape at. Word.
Yes, I like the rhymes.
All of us are born with the miraculous ability to determine the direction from which sounds approach us.
Let us venture into new and uncharted land.
People get shook up, when I'm introduced as God.
You got that good hair, too.
You're the first one out there with a dashiki talking that crap.
It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
I pull up, hop out, air out, made it look sexy. They won't take me out my element. Nah, take me out my element.
For this podcast, I'm sipping on Bourbon Street Imperial Stout, aged in bourbon barrels, man. This thing is hardcore, man. So definitely delicious stuff, man. Highly recommended, especially for those that love stouts, like real G's. Word is born, and they're not paying for this podcast. Word. Y'all thought I forgot, but I didn't forget. This month, I started a book club here in my wonderful city of Dayton, Ohio. And the book that we chose was Zora Neale Hurston's Barracoon, the story of the last black cargo, edited by Deborah G. Plant, with a foreword by Alice Walker. So far, I started reading it. I'm a little bit ahead of the game. I'm on page 21, and I love it. I love it, number one, because I am a historian. And number two, I love Zora Neale Hurston. I think that, and this has to do with her contemporaries, really. Because a lot of her contemporaries, Langston Hughes, people like W.E.B. Du Bois, they actually hated on her. And a lot of people in the literary world hated on her because she was a woman, and because she was kind of throwing like a lot of anthropology in there. She inspired me in my writing on so many levels, so I was really excited to hear that she was coming out with a new book. And actually, the book was done in the 1930s. And it never got published together all in its entirety. So it's been released, and it's just so wonderful. It's been learning so much. It's a tough read, and what I mean by that is a tough read because it's an emotionally tough read. Other than that, Zora Neale Hurston, she could write her ass off, man. Like, Their Eyes Are Watching God is fucking dope. Really, I've never read any Zora Neale Hurston book that I didn't come away with and saying I didn't like it or it didn't touch me. So Their Eyes Are Watching God is the one that she's known for, and they actually made a movie out of it, so that's probably why I always tell people to read that one first. But other than that, man, shout out to my book club, and we're going to have a very fruitful discussion on this word. So for those of you that know me here at Where My Killer Tape At, you know that I'm a huge fan of Black Thought, of the Roots. Again, it should be in your top five. He's not in your top five. You shouldn't even have a discussion about who's a dope MC and who's not. Anyway, and I'm not saying he did this out of the blue, because he was saying he was going to release it. In conjunction with Ninth Wonder, he released the EP, Streams of Thought, Volume 1. It's 5 cuts, just straight hardcore 5 cuts. I think it's dope because in 2018, we got some really dope albums. Fonte released his joint early in the year. You had Nipsey Hussle, he released another joint. And that was just amazing. And then, we had Prime 2. And I know that Royce the 5'9" released another joint. I haven't actually checked it out because I'm still absorbing Prime 2. So, anyway, it's just been a great year for hip-hop, particularly those of us that enjoy lyricists and lyricism. But again, Black Thought did it, and just to be honest, like, the only issue I have with this album is that but it's not an album, it's an EP. It's only 5 songs. That 215, that first track, this is fucking amazing. I mean, damn, it's amazing. And you got to listen to it over and over. I mean, with Black Thought, you literally have to have a history book and a dictionary and references to literature to listen to his joints and break it down. Like, this is going to take a minute. So that 215 is my joint. That Dostoevsky joint he got with Rhapsody, yo. If I was to like do an album, like I was to like do an album, like, and what I mean by that is not me rhyming on it, but if I was to say I want to be an A&R for somebody's album, I'd be like, you gotta have Rhapsody spit on your shit. And she's been, and first of all, if you don't have an album, she got nominated for a Grammy last year for it. If you don't have that one, then we really don't need to be talking right now. For real, to be honest, you don't even listen to my show. But anyway, I think it's dope that she was making mad cameos. I know she was on Prime 2, and, you know, she's just making mad cameos. But anyway, Styles P also represents I'm Making a Murderer on this track. And then my second favorite track is a Thank You featuring Kirby, a new singer. Well, I don't know if he's a new singer now. I don't know. So, you know, somebody tell me if he is, and I'm not familiar with him at all. But just cop this joint is dope. Once again, man, thank you, Black Thought. We don't deserve you. Yo, I was just checking something out the other day. It was an article. I'm going to post the article in the show notes that I thought was dope. And it's funny because I know we were talking about Thanos. Everybody was talking about how his idea of fixing the universe is to kill half the population so we have enough resources, which is completely total bullshit. And you hear a lot of right-wingers and conspiracy theorists say that the earth is overpopulated. And I always tell them, I say, yo, every restaurant in the United States, I can't speak for other countries, every restaurant in the United States throws food away at night. On top of that, they're not allowed to give that food to the needy. I mean, I'm not saying every restaurant doesn't do it, but I know McDonald's can't do it, and I know McDonald's is not a restaurant, but I know a lot of fast food places, it's like illegal for them to give money to the poor. I mean, not money, but to give food to the homeless or whatever. So I found this article about this app called Goodr, and it's Goodr. Download it if you live in, especially live in Atlanta, because what they do is you put in the information and you actually help them find food to give to homeless people. It's from restaurants. So I think it's dope. I think it's a great idea because we are very wasteful. We throw away a lot of food every night in the United States and people go hungry. So I think it's like 20,000 kids in the United States go hungry every night. So it's a small step, and I love the fact that they're using technology that you could just download to do that. But I think this is dope, man. I think it's amazing. Work. Another big thing that just happened was your homie, your buddy, Kim Kardashian, another name that we're going to try to not say on this podcast anymore, went to visit 45 at the White House for the discussion on prison reform, right? And, you know, first of all, shout out to Alice Marie Johnson and her family, right? Because she finally came home after spending decades in prison for racist drug laws, right? Because remember, there was a time when, and we're going to talk about that, there was a time when if you got caught with, you know, a few vials of crack cocaine, you got automatic 5 years, right? Which was racist, right? Of course. And that was called the Rockefeller laws, right? Those were part of the Rockefeller laws. And they were called Rockefeller laws because one of the Rockefellers, he was a senator at the time in the state of New York, pushed for these laws, right? In the state of New York, that has since been overturned. And it's gone retro. So if you were convicted under the Rockefeller laws, you will be released. Unfortunately, the way the prison industrial complex works, they don't just say, oh, you know, bust, not bad. You know, we convicted you under the Rockefeller laws. Let's go ahead and let you go. No, what they actually have to do is a process. You know, it's a bureaucracy. So there are people, and this happened about, you know, they overturned the Rockefeller laws. This happened about Senator Clinton was actually senator in New York at that time. That was a long time ago, man. We talking about maybe 10 years, right? More than 10 years. And there are people still in jail because of the Rockefeller law. Because they didn't just say, all of you guys get out. They actually have to sit down and look at it case by case and then make a decision. Not saying that you're not going to get released, it's just you're not going to get released right away. That being said, and that's probably why I'm really mad about this, about Kim K going to C45, because she's not an expert on the shit, right? And look, I'm not an expert on it. I'm just well read on it, right? Now, I give her props for getting Alice Marie Johnson released. I think that's dope, and that's a win for people that are in the streets fighting against, the prison industrial complex, right? But my issue is that people are saying, well, you should be thankful that she's doing this, right? And see, the Kardashians are really good at this shit, right? They're really good at taking other people's work and claiming it as their own. And they may not be running around saying, okay, I did this, right? And we've seen her interview with Van Jones, and you could tell she don't know what the fuck she's talking about, right? It's just clear, obviously clear, right? But I've heard people say things like, what are you doing? XYZ, what are people doing? And let me just say this. Again, I think I talked about this before. We talked about our ancestors. There have been people that have been fighting against the prison industrial complex since the 1860s, right? Going into the streets. I mean, damn it. A couple weeks ago, I talked about the hashtag Free Black Mamas, which has been going on for 2 years. Shout out to Black Lives Matter. Shout out to End Bailout, right? And Money Bailout, because that even in of itself is fucked up, right? It's something we talked about here, right? And here's what it is, right? With Kim K, with her privilege and her celebrity, shouldn't she use that platform to amplify? And look, I don't get in the business of telling people how to do their activism. I really don't. But this is how you fuck shit up. This is how you mess things up, right? If I had that much money, if I had that much celebrity, I would amplify the voices of people that know what the fuck they talking about, right? I mean, shit. Michelle Alexander wrote a great book called The New Jim Crow, which talks about the prison industrial complex and how it pretty much is a new form of slavery, right? Like really. And then, come on, you have Angela Davis. She wrote a book called Prisons Are Obsolete. This is what she does for a living. She talks about prison reform. So, I mean, God damn it. Like, people, what are y'all doing? So, I think when we talk about Kim K, we talk about what she did with 45, I think we need to discuss that. And then to turn around and say that we should give 45 props for this. Really, people? I mean, come on, man. Like, are we talking about the same motherfucker? I mean, come on, y'all. Talk to me.
It's all a game. It's all a game.
Also, I want to say something real quick, man. Like, because we're real quick to give white folks, an invite to the cookout. I think I talked about this before too. And we're real quick to be like, oh, yo, he's woke or she's woke or whatever, right? And I be like, that's it? That's all y'all need? And I don't think we should give people props for the bare minimums, right? Like, I don't think we should be like, oh, he's not racist, And it's kind of like being on time for work, right? Like, nobody gets an award for being on time for work. It's expected of you. You should show up on time for work. So when I see companies that they do the right thing, and look, I don't know. I mean, they, like, for example, you see a company that say, hey, we want to hire, people of color. We want to put them in middle management, et cetera, or management. We're like, oh, yes. And I'm like, fuck that. And here's why. Here's why. I kind of feel like, when it just makes more economic sense for you to hire a diverse staff. It just makes sense, especially if you're in an area where your consumer base is diverse, right? And it's funny because I get into these debates all the time when we talk about representation in comics. What I tell people is that it's not about social justice. I mean, yeah, it's social justice, but it's ultimately not about social justice. It just makes more economic sense if you make characters and hire staff that looks like people of color. It just makes sense because why? Your consumer base, part of your consumer base are those people, right? And you know what I'm saying? Like, it just makes perfect sense. Like, I want to go to restaurants that have a diverse menu. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just makes sense because I want something that's big. That's why I don't eat at fast food restaurants. That's exactly why. I want to be able to say I want this. And I'm not saying you should have Ethiopian food and then you have Colombian food in your menu. I'm just saying that it should be a wide variety. It just makes more economic sense for you to have those kind of choices. So I don't see it as a matter of social justice. I don't see it as a matter of, it's a matter of social justice because we have to fight for it. But ultimately, you should make those decisions because it just makes sense. It just makes sense. And then it's kind of like we reward these organizations for doing this thing, but it's kind of like you should have been doing that. Just should have been doing that. So nobody should be getting pats on the back for doing the right thing. Again, nobody gets pats on the back for showing up to work on time. It's ridiculous. You know what I mean? And it sets the bar so low. Stepping up and speaking up is not something that you should get props for. And just things like that. Or you listen to hip hop music. You should listen to hip hop music. It's just diverse. There's genres of music that I don't like, but I like particular artists that they make good music and I listen to it. So it's just, and I don't mean that there's genres I don't like. This is genres that I don't listen to, but they might have a particular artist or two that I like and I buy their stuff. And it's just makes sense for that to work that way, And, I would, and that's the thing about racism and white supremacy is that it's not logical. It doesn't work on logic. So a lot of times we see people do things and we try to explain it away when really it's just not logical. It just really is not. Work.
Yeah. I think Chris should run first on this one. I think so too. Yeah. I think Chris should run first on this one. I think so too.
I know everybody either is talking about or talked about the Pusha T and Drake beef, and I'm not going to comment on it, really, but I want to say something that every time we talk about Drake, it always comes up. And shout out to Black Thought, man. Word is born. Like, man, I'm going to review his EP too. But it's something that every time artists talk about Drake, they always bring up, like, hey, he's not a true MC because he has a lot of ghostwriters, And I'm an old school cat. I've been listening to hip hop since I was 6. I'm 45 now, so I've been listening to it for a while. I've seen mad cats perform. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've been in the booth. I've seen the studio. I'm a b-boy, so I've been doing hip hop for a minute, and it's something that gets thrown around a lot. And I come from the era where being an MC, like your lyrics is that was your bread and butter. Like when we talk about who the top 5 or whatever, it's usually cats that can rhyme. And that's, being an MC, that's what we look at it as, right? So when people get accused of ghostwriting, which if we was to sit down and do the math and go back, we're going to get to that in a second, but what we say is that if you have a ghostwriter, then, you're not authentic. You're not a true MC. Even though we've known over the years that some of the our favorites had people that wrote for them or co-wrote for them, right? And if you I know we don't look at liner notes anymore, but back in the day, we used to look at liner notes and it would tell you who wrote and who produced what. And you would always see, for particular writers, you will always see a lot of names when it comes to the writing. And usually it'll have like the first initial or their first name, and then it will have their last name. So like G. Smith, L. Leonard, I noticed that, so, and even the producers too, right? So, and then we got to get into the discussion of what you get credit for, what you don't get credit for, who you should give credit to, and who you should not give credit to. But I know, I think really what bust everything open for everybody when it comes to ghostwriting was Lauryn Hill's first album. And what happened is on that album, her first album, Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, she had a lot of collaborators, which a lot of artists, particularly those that make a lot of money and they have access to samples and producers and all of that, they end up using different collaborators. Some of them write, some of them produce, some of them make beats. Because actually, that's when I learned that there's a difference between making beats and producing an actual track. And they're not mutually exclusive, right? And I remember a couple years ago, Stickman was talking about how he wrote some stuff for Nas on his previous album, And, you know, he was in the studio with him and he helped him write some stuff and he got credit for it. And people were questioning Nas's integrity. And, but I don't think, here's the thing, I don't think they were trying to hide anything. But, you know, man, I'm jumping back and forth. Anyway, check out Black Thought's interview he did where he talked about, in his statement, I kind of agree with his statement. It's in the djbooth.net. And he says, you can't be top 5 if you don't write what you're saying. And he doesn't hate on people like, oh, you're not an MC. And I used to come from that school. Like, if you ain't writing your shit, you're not an MC. And I think that the analogy that R&B singers usually don't write their own songs, I think that's a bad analogy because R&B singers are known for their singing, right? When you watch American Idol and all of that, they don't, and I'm not saying that American Idol is a good way to show who's a dope artist, but they don't say, oh, that's not your song, so we're going to take away 10 points. They go by their skill, and their skill is singing, right? So it doesn't matter what they're singing, it's how they sing it. But with MCs, is what you write in and how you convey that. Part of it is what you write in. So I agree with Black Thought that you shouldn't be in the top 5, but again, your faves have ghostwriters. Chuck D admitted that they did a Public Enemy album, I can't remember which one, and he agreed that the homie wrote mad joints on it. I'm trying to remember his name. The one that wrote The Devil Made Me Do It, remember that cat? He became he was like a Black Panther type of MC, and then he got into stock prices and stuff. But he wrote most of the album. We know that Biz Markie, we know that Big Daddy Kane wrote all his stuff when he first came out. We know that Foxy Brown, that a lot of people wrote for her originally. Little Kim, Biggie wrote for her. There's a lot of artists that people wrote for. We know that Eazy-E couldn't rhyme. Ice Cube did a lot of that stuff. DOC wrote for a lot of the stuff on the Chronic album. Like, I could go on and on about different people that Ghost wrote. You know what I'm saying? Mad Skills. One day I hope he writes. I think he signed an NDA though. But I hope he writes the book because he goes for mad people. That's how he eats. Shout out to Mad Skills, man. I love you, brother. Like, he wrote for mad people. So we live in, and as the older we get, the more we learn about who wrote what, who collaborated on what, who added this hook, who added this last verse, like who wrote this middle verse. We're learning more and more about that. And so we got to really, if we're going to say that, we got to question everything, right? We got to question everything. So I don't think, in conclusion, I don't think you're not an MC if somebody else is ghostwriting for you. I honestly don't think they should not. Should you be in the top 5? Questionable, right? I don't know. I don't necessarily disagree with Black Thought, but I kind of feel him on that. And then we're going to leave it at that for ghostwriting. What do y'all think? So a lot of people are talking about what happened to Kelly Marie Tran. And she was part of the cast of The Last Jedi, which I think was a dope movie, but that's neither here nor there. And we learned that she actually shut down a lot of her social media because of trolls. And you know what, like when we say trolls, I think I use it for lack of a better term, because there are some whack ass motherfuckers. There are some cowards out there, right? But let me say this, because it's real easy to be like, those people over there are trolls. Those people over there do this. We don't do this. Like, I'm a fan and I don't get down like that. But yo, they come from our community, man. We gotta stop acting like these motherfuckers are like people we don't know. We know these motherfuckers. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. Some of them do it anonymously. Some of them will create, and people do this, people create profiles just to troll other people. I've seen this happen to me. And let me say this, man. And shout out to Who Won the Week, because they brought this up, right? And they talked about, we need, instead of trying to be allies, we need to be like participants, active participants in this kind of shit. And I'm gonna explain to you how it is. I remember, teaching middle school, and we talked about bullying a lot. And it seemed like we always had this profile of what a bully looks like and how he looks like, how he's supposed to get down and all that, and how you can pick them out, right? I learned very easily that is not true, right? And I think that's a Hollywood caricature of the bully, right? They always have these caricatures of bullies coming from these bad families. And I learned two things. I learned that bullies are so usually people that we know and care about and hang out with and support. And number two, bullying happens in a group setting. And what I mean by that is that usually somebody would say something to somebody, and then like the offender, their group of friends will either A, shut up, or kind of like back him up, right? And then everybody else kind of like minds their business, you know what I'm saying? And then and the victim feels more marginalized, right? And then when an authority figure steps in, right, everybody scatters, nobody saw anything. And then the victim looks like they crazy because everybody's like, I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know what they're talking about. So what happens is we create this atmosphere where bullying continues. That's why it always continues. That's why it's very difficult to stop. And it's really us. It's really us, right? Because we create an atmosphere that allows that victimization to happen, right? So it's one thing, and I never forget. I had a coworker, and to this day she always brings this up. And I'm not trying to get props for this. Let me go talk about this in a second. And I remember she had said something, and in a meeting, we had a meeting at work. She had said something, and it was ignored. And I backed her, you know what I mean? And then, like pushed for her idea, and it got put in, it got implemented. And she was like, "Yo, thank you." And I was like, actually, and the crazy part was, it was just like easy. I thought that it was going to be a fight, you know what I mean? But as soon as I said something, it was like boom. And that's male privilege, of course. That's definitely male privilege. But my point is that, and this is what they were saying on Who Won the Week on Sci-Fi Wire, they were saying that we need to really, make sure that if we speak out, that we take these lumps, right? So if we see somebody like, Kelly Marie Tran, people coming for her, right? We need to come for those people. You know what I mean? We need to say, hey, you're not going to do that here. It's not going to go down like that. And I think a lot of times, and don't get me wrong, there's risk involved, but to the victim, there's more risk involved than to the person who steps up. That's one thing I've learned, right? So we need to call people out, right? And we need to create an atmosphere that says we're not going to allow this. You know what I mean? That we're not going to allow you to come in here and threaten people or whatever, particularly in the fandom community, right? Because the whole point is, the reason why we became fans of this geek culture is because the underdog is always the hero. So we kind of like believe in that. We relate to that stuff because, we're Peter Parkers, you know what I mean? Like we could understand how that feels. That's why we went into this geek culture, right? So that's the whole point. But the thing is that we're allowing these cats to come in here and doing that. And the thing is, a lot of those are your peoples, man. A lot of those dudes that do that are your man. I sat in many a barbershop where somebody says some foul shit and, I called them on it. Like, that's how that works. We need to be participants. We need to be active. We need to let people know, yo, that's not cool. Like, I'm not going for that. We're not doing that. Because silence actually is agreeing, and you may say whatever you want, but me saying, me not saying anything when somebody says some wild shit or comes out at somebody is like saying I agree because, I'm letting you get away with it. And it doesn't mean that I got to confront you in the whole situation. I could always take you to the side and be like, hey, man, that's not cool. So we need to start doing that, man. Word.
This is a man's world, but it would be nothing without. This is a man's world.
Part 3, here we see, zip line McCarthy, heavy on the list, you blink my ice ring, John Lee Green, get that swamp, COD, part 3, here we see, zip line McCarthy.
Yes, I know it's been a minute, but How to Approach Women is back. I apologize for that, but we had other things we had to take care of. Anyway, I was told by several of my homies that I should talk about this. It is the summer. Oh, it's almost the summer, but it's going to be the summer soon. But it's already hot in most places. So the women are out there wearing their summer dresses, looking good as usual. Keep rocking it. And also rocking their beach bodies, because everybody's a beach body, right? Anyway, I was asked to say that when you approach a woman, a key thing is not to state the obvious. Yes, I don't know. I know that sounds crazy, but for some reason, a lot of us men, just like love to state the obvious. Here's an example, right? If the woman in question has a huge derriere, for some reason, you idiots think it's okay to say, oh my God, you got a fat ass. I can bet any amount of money that that person you're talking to owns a mirror, and they probably see themselves every day in that mirror. Probably they own a couple of mirrors, and they probably see themselves in several of those mirrors each day, and they kind of know they have a big ass. So I think that you reminding them it's pretty stupid. Or if she has a pretty smile, like if she has like nice lips, she probably knows because she probably puts lip balm on it or something every day. Just things like that. Just don't state the obvious. Like, I mean, come on, fellas. Like, let's try to be a little bit more creative when we do these things, right? And it's annoying. I mean, just think about it. Like, for example, I'm really loud, right? If someone says to me, man, you're so loud, I kind of already know that. You don't have to tell me that. I can see if you're telling me to be quiet or something, but if that's like the first thing you say, I kind of already know it. So it's kind of annoying. It's probably a bad analogy when it comes to that, but I don't have a big butt, so I really can't speak on that. But that being said, don't state the obvious, fellas. Word. Yep, the health segment. We back again. I know it's been a minute. So we're going to talk about body positivity and what is healthy. What's a healthy body, right? And we've talked about this before, and I'm all down for the body positive movement, and I think that's crucially important. And a lot of times, the people that I work with, I usually tell them that to do this particular exercise, where you stand in front of the mirror and then you write about what you see. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times, because of the industries that we're surrounded by, that are based in Eurocentric beauty standards, we tend to hate our bodies. We tend to hate how we look in, jeans. We tend to hate how we look in the bathing suit. We tend to hate how we look in a suit. We really do. A lot of us really do. And it's not our fault. It's because, again, there's all these industries that are telling you that you're ugly if you don't look a particular way, or if outfit doesn't fit you a particular way. So I'm a firm believer that every body is a beach body. You know what I mean? Like, I do believe that. And I don't believe in body shaming. I think that shit is whack. I think it's juvenile. When you're an adult, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be taking pictures of people on the street and then posting them online and going, ew. Like, that's very, very juvenile. Don't do that. A lot of us like to assume that, and I love telling this story, right? A lot of us like to assume that if you're overweight, et cetera, or too big, et cetera, however you want to, whatever you like to dice it, that you're unhealthy. And that's not true at all. It's not true at all. You can be slim and be out of shape. You could be slim and have, debilitating diseases such as diabetes and stuff like that. So don't ever assume, don't ever make an assumption. Shout out to Thick Girl Yoga. But the story that I love to tell is that I have a student who does capoeira. He's been doing capoeira with me for years. And he's a big guy. When he first came to me, he was about 300 pounds. Now he's about 240, 250. And he's a big guy, but he can do all the movements. He can move around. He has a lot of stamina. And it's funny because people see him and they underestimate him. He's like one of the few students that he never asks for a break. Because the way I run my class, I'm the one that's in charge of giving the breaks. And whether you need to drink water or whatever. So I usually have to say, hey, y'all can drink water. Y'all can do this. Usually how it is in martial arts, by the way. Whoever's in charge, the sensei or the shifu or whatever, they are the ones that tell you when to go take a break. Anyway, you always have people who say, oh, man, I need a break. He never asks for one. He keeps going. He usually finishes all the movements and exercises before everybody else. And he's a big dude. But a lot of us, when they walk into the classroom, they see him and they assume he can't do anything. So I don't believe in, somebody is built a particular way that they can do certain things and they can't do certain things. I know cats that are wide around the waist and they could do backhand springs like it's going out of style. So let's chill with all that nonsense. Word.
Lord of mercy, all night Sundays and crew. Follow me now, mercy, all night Sundays and crew. Follow me now, mercy, all night Sundays and crew. Follow me now, mercy, all night Sundays and crew. Follow me now.
Always got to do the shout outs. Episode 16 of What My Killer Tape at. First of all, I want to shout out my neighborhood. A lot of times listeners will ask me, we recording that, man. I record everywhere, anywhere that I can, especially when I have a moment, especially when a thought comes to mind. So a lot of the sounds you hear, the ones that are in my neighborhood, in the big city of Dayton, Ohio. It's not that big though. So you can hear my neighbors arguing, people playing music, you can hear crickets, you can hear cars going by, motorcycles. It's wild. So, you know, people arguing or whatever. So shout out to my neighborhood. Also, I want to shout out to the folks that You Got Me at Black. Hopefully they'll put me and my mentor on for their Father's Day special coming up. Word is born. And then shout out to the homie Steph from the Dope Science Show, who continues to give me dope ideas on how to improve my show, and just, you know, a good person to bounce ideas off of. And she's always doing big things, the Dope Science Show. And I gotta get a t-shirt. Word is born. Yo, we out. There you go, party people. Episode 16 of season 2 of Where My Killer Tape At. Thank you for listening. Man, I love y'all, man. You can check us out on Twitters at Omi's Podcast or MIS Podcast, or you can just hit me up on the Twitters and the DMs at DANTRESOMI. Dantrez Omi. You know how we do. If you want to continue the conversation, just, of course, hashtag Where My Killer Tape At, and killer spelled KILLA. Word, I love y'all. Y'all be easy, be safe, man. Love one another, speak truth, and breathe love. Word, and we out.